open invitation to continue that discussion, to know how to finance this going forward. So as quickly as possible is the answer to your question. And a decade is not something that I find an acceptable time frame to address some of the more acute concerns. Sorry? I think there have been some improvements, and I think that if you look at the simple fact that there are today, I believe I'm right, 60 new cleaners, for example, on the job and working. They're on the job and working. This is not a political promise. It's not a commitment they've made for some future implementation. You know, there's work to do in places like the call center. I concede that. People shouldn't be, you know, getting less service on the weekend. If your hot water's out and it's Sunday, it doesn't really matter what day it is. Your hot water's out. And this kind of thing. So we have more improvement to make. But I think when you look at some of the things and some of the monies that we're putting forward this year to address things like the increased door access systems, the cleaning that I mentioned, and so on. And I think as well, if we can sort of focus in on that mandate, which is to be the best landlord, and there's a really excellent paragraph, I'll refer you to the page number that it's on, about just being an excellent landlord. If you are, I look at it this way, and we had quite a good discussion about this yesterday. People who need help with social programs and social challenges they have in their lives are citizens just like everybody else, and they should be getting that help, whether it's with mental health issues or there's been some fabulous work done when you bring in organizations like CODA to places like Oak Street, and you bring in some of these organizations and they provide services as they do for other citizens. And I think if we can get Toronto Community Housing focused on its mandate, which is to be an excellent landlord, focused on working together with other partners to increase the supply of housing, and focused on working with us to change the structure so that you can actually have, you know, as I said, fewer memos coming from a smaller head office and more action being taken in the neighborhoods by people who work there, working with the city councillors, I think you can see this service improve even more dramatically. In a way, isn't it going to be better to actually speak to somebody you know about a problem you have in your building or your neighborhood and be able to go to a committee that you're a part of and be able to speak to your city councillor than it is to call a call center or send a letter off or an email to some place that is kind of faceless and you've never seen it before. And I think this model will really help to achieve more of that. And that's true in any big organization, by the way. It's not confined to Toronto Community Housing. We'll take two more and then we're going to have to be done. Are you with the media, sir? Oh, so we're just taking media questions, and I'm happy to talk to others afterwards. Again, Les, I want to be very clear about this. I'm not proposing in saying that it shouldn't be the mandate of what should be an excellent landlord and an excellent partner in developing more affordable housing. I'm not suggesting for a moment that the TCHC just says from today forward we're not going to do that anymore. But I will say, and the recommendation in the report speaks directly to the question that the local health integration organizations which exist to bring the resources to bear of all the different people led by the provincial government to address issues like mental health, which I think we do wholly inadequately in the city, and it relates to issues of people in crisis. When we see all the stories about the police, it relates to people who are tenants in Toronto Community Housing. We are not addressing that. It's a health problem, first and foremost. It's a social problem, it's an economic problem, but it's a health problem. And so I am saying that we are going to have a greater role played by these provincial organizations, including the government itself, and things like the LHINs, to address this, and that it should be addressed as it would be for any other citizen. But I'm not going to leave people high and dry. Nothing that I'm advocating for or pushing for is going to leave people high and dry. They are the most vulnerable people in our city. I've had the chance to go to many of these buildings since I've been the mayor in the last year or so. And as you know, the statistics I think are in the book, in Senator Eggleton's report. There is a much higher incidence of mental health, addiction, and other kinds of very acute social challenges facing the people who are also people that are at a disadvantage in terms of their income level. Well, I don't know that we even would have an estimate. I mean, there's huge amounts of time, more than anything else, of the sort of staff who, are trying their best to solve problems that they're not even the best people to solve them. I mean, they're not experts in mental health or addiction. And that's why I saw, thanks to an invitation that I received, the experience at one building quite recently where they brought in an organization like CODA, and these organizations exist and have the experts to make a difference in these areas. And you know what I saw? They were making a difference. And they didn't work for Toronto Community Housing, but they worked with people who lived in Toronto Community Housing buildings, who are citizens just like the rest of us. Last question to anybody? I don't think that is an issue. At the end of the day, look, the one thing that is true is that in the present circumstances, it is the City Council. There's 45 of us who have the decision-making authority to decide to restructure, the Toronto Community Housing along the lines suggested, for example, in this report. That is our decision. And we will then have the decision that goes with that of saying, well, all right, who best can run the Board of Directors and can manage this, and we will look at those things one at a time. I'm focused for the moment on seeing that they continue to try and improve things on a day-to-day basis, and that we get on with, starting this week at the Executive Committee, actually implementing as much of this report as we possibly can. I think it's urgent. Thanks very much.